Hey everyone, welcome back to Vony Movies. Today I will show you an action, adventure, fantasy film from 2021, titled Spider-Man No Way Home. Spoilers ahead, and enjoy the video. The movie starts right where Spider-Man Far From Home left off, with a news broadcast from the Daily Bugle hosted by Jay Jonah Jameson playing a doctored video created by Mysterio where he claims that Spider-Man was behind the John attacks and reveals Spider-Man's secret identity. Following the breaking news, the citizens of New York crowd around Peter and MJ, forcing them to swing away to Peter's house, where we see is Aunt May and Happy Hogan discussing their breakup since they've been on what May describes as a summer fling throughout. Far From Home police and news helicopters surrounding film outside of theaters' home, and Peter's eventually arrested for the murder of Mysterio. While in questioning, explains that he didn't kill Mysterio, the Jones did, and tells them to bring in Nick Fury since he was there to see what really happened. But it turns out, as we learned on the Far From Home post-credits scene, Nick Fury has been off-planet for the last year, and we'll learn more on why. And Marvel's Disney Plus series Secret Invasion, releasing in 2022, Stark Industries also gets tangled up in the Spider-Man controversy, and Happy is under suspicion for apparent missing Stark tech. To get out of his current predicament, Peter meets with blind lawyer Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox, who first portrayed the character of Marvel's Netflix series Daredevil, released in 2015, that you can now find on Disney Plus. Although the variants seen in this film isn't the exact same as the one from that series, Matt manages to get Peter's criminal charges dropped but informs Happy that the police is still looking into the missing Stark tech. Some people still think Spider-Man's a menace, off with one person even throwing a brick through their window, but Matt somehow manages to catch it, showing there may be more to him than just being a lawyer. Although Peter's no longer in any legal trouble, the controversy surrounding Spider-Man leads to him, MJ, and Ned being rejected from every college they applied to, including their top choice MIT, seeing how he's affected the lives of the people around him. And after noticing and Doctor Strange Halloween decoration, he goes to meet with Doctor Strange at the Sanctum Sanctorum and asks if there was any way he could go back in time to make it so that his identity was never revealed. But Strange says he's unable to do so without the Time Stone, and instead offers to cast the spell to make everyone forget that he's Spider-Man. Wong, who was made the new Sorcerer Supreme after Strange and disappeared for 5 years in the blood, disapproves, claiming the spells too dangerous, traveling the dark borders between known and unknown realities. But Strange convinces him it'll be okay and says Peter's been through enough. So Strange takes Peter into the Sanctum's basement space called the Undercroft and begins casting the spell, but after realizing that his closest friends and family could forget everything they've ever been through, Peter repeatedly changes the parameters of the spell, causing it to get out of control and strangers forced to shut it down. Strange says he's sorry for what he and his friends are going through, but if they rejected him, and he failed to convince them to reconsider, then there's nothing he can do. And after learning Peter didn't even try convincing them to reconsider, he takes him out. So Peter then goes and finds the MIT assistant vice-chancellor on traffic on the bridge in an attempt to appeal his and his friends' applications, but suddenly, his spidey sense puts him on high alert as giant robotic arms approach him, and it's revealed to be Dr. Otto Octavius, aka Dr. Octopus. Otto asks Peter where he put his machine, but Peter has no idea what he's talking about. So Otto attacks him and they have an incredible brawl, during which that mighty lady is still locked in her car and he's nearly knocked off the bridge, but Peter manages to catch it. This distraction allows Otto to get a hold of him and tear off part of his nanotech suit. But the nanobots attaching to his robotic arms. He goes for a fatal stab, but Peter uses the nanobots to block the blow. "You're not beautiful. I am so confused right now. What I didn't realize is that when the nanobots transferred onto his arms, it gave Peter full control of that." So Peter's able to save that mighty lady and wrap Otto up in his own tentacles, now proven to be a hero in her eyes. That mighty administrator says she's going to talk to admissions about him and his strength. Peter then confronts Otto to try and understand what's going on before Spidey's sense puts him on high alert once again. Pumpkin Bomb then rolls down towards the middle of the bridge before exploding with the Green Goblin appearing through the smoke Otto recognizes to be Norman Osborn. He flies towards them on his glider. But before we can attack, Peter and Otto sent through a portal back to the Undercroft, with Otto being locked up alongside the lizard. Dr. Connors Strange explains that when Peter Boss's spell, it began pulling in people from other universes that know Peter Parker as Spider-Man, and although he was able to contain it for the most part, a few slipped through the cracks, with him encountering the lizard not too long after Peter's exit in his universe in 2012. Dr. Connors was a scientist who began studying cross-species genetics after losing his arm and an attempt to find a cure. He mentored and worked alongside his universe's Peter Parker to create a serum that he first tested on himself, but the imperfect serum transformed him into a human-lizard hybrid that terrorized the city, looking to transform all humans to human-lizard hybrids since he believed it was the next step in their evolution. Spider-Man later managed to stop the lizard and release an antidote that reverted him back into Dr. Connors, but it appears that he was transported to this universe before that could happen. Strange now needs Peter to go find any other multiversal tresses while he figures out how to send them back, giving Peter a device that will allow him to transport them straight to the Undercroft. So with the help of MJ and that, Peter goes on the hunt for the others wearing his new black and gold, which is really just a random black suit turned inside out. He heads to a military research facility outside the city after learning there had been a disturbance nearby, and when he gets there he finds Max Dillon aka Electro seemingly charging up on energy. Peter attempts to capture him but fails and is attacked before surprisingly being helped by Flint Marko aka the Salmon in his universe in 2005. Flint Marko was an escaped convict who went into a life of crime to help pay for his terminally ill daughter's treatment. But while being chased by the police, fell into an experimental particle accelerator. Molecularly bound him with sand. After first encountering the Salmon, his universe's Peter Parker learned that Flint Marko was the man that killed his uncle. So Peter looked to avenge his uncle and killed the Salmon, but in the end, he let him escape after Marko apologized for killing his uncle, explaining how it was an accident and that he regretted it deeply. Samantha first believes this Peter to be the same one he knows, which is why he helps them stop Electro and reverted back to his human form, this time with a good hairline and no gap between his teeth. Peter then transports them into the Undercroft, and as he heads back to the Sanctum we see the Green Goblin in hiding in his universe, and who doesn't. So Norman Osborn was a brilliant scientist who gained a split personality after an experiment to enhance human performance went wrong. But he seems to have rid himself of his alter ego after destroying his Green Goblin mask and seeking help at All May's place of work. Feast, a charity partner with Spider-Man to help those displaced by the blood, may inform SFIDA that Norman is there, and when he arrives, he convinces him to help Britain Woman and the others of their mental instability. But Peter says they have a better chance of getting help in their own universe. Upon arriving at the Undercroft, Norman recognizes Otto. Just as Otto recognized him, Norman asks what happened to him, but Otto is even more confused, calling him a walking corpse. He reveals that Norman died years ago, and Salmon interjects to reveal that they both died in the Battle of Spider-Man, with Norman being impaled by his own glider and Doc Ock John with his machine in the river in his universe in 2004. Dr. Otto Octavius was a nuclear scientist and mentor to Peter Parker that performed a fusion power projects using a harness of powerful robotic arms with artificial intelligence. With the experiment became unstable and the neural inhibitor chip that prevented the arms from influencing his mind was destroyed, fusing the arms to his spine. Under the arms' influence, he looks to complete his experiment and harness the power of the sun in the palm of his hand, but was stopped by Spider-Man. Only managed to read Otto at the tentacle's influence after he completed rebuilding his machine, and so Otto was forced to sacrifice himself to destroy the reactor and save the city. But the last thing Otto claves to our members, having his tentacles wrapped around Spider-Man's throat. Electro follows up saying the last thing he remembers was whooping Spider-Man's ass while absorbing all of the world's power. And so Spider-Man caused an overload and he realizes he was actually about to die before being transported here in his universe in 2014. Max Dillon was an electrical engineer for Oscorp Industries and was seen as a nobody before falling into a tank of genetically modified electric eels. While fixing a broken power line, turning into pure electrical energy with his newfound power electrical plan to take away and absorb all of the world's energy, but while doing so was stopped by Spider-Man, caused an overload that killed Max. Doctor Strange that returns with the Machina Deca Domus, an ancient relic inside of which he's trapped the boss spell, saying it will allow him to reverse the spell and send them back to where they came from. Peter, now aware of their respective fates, says they can't send them back, or at least not yet. But Strange claims that in the grand calculus of the multiverse, their sacrifice means infinitely more than their lives. He begins the ritual, forcing Peter to snatch the box away with a web before attempting to run off with it. Although Strange separated Peter's astral form from his body, he just Spidey sense allows him to still dodge Hinge's attempts to take the box back, so Strange sends them into the mirror dimension, a parallel dimension where those wearing a sling ring, a mystical ring with the ability to create a dimension and gateway to another location or even a different dimension, have full control like a fold and warp reality without affecting the outside world. Strange he gets a hold of the box once again, but before connects it, Peter realizes the mirror dimension is made up of geometric shapes and mathematically figures out a way to web Strange up and take the box back along with Stranger's sling, right, locking him in the mirror dimension. While he attempts to cure the villains, Peter leaves the box to them and the sling ring with net before taking the supervillains to Happy Departments, and CMA had moved in there earlier. Although the Lizard doesn't enter it using the stay in the trump, Peter first attempts to cure Doc Ock, working alongside Norman to build a replacement neural inhibited chip using a Stark Industries fabricator also containing an arc reactor that catches the attention of Electro. Peter connects the new inhibitor chip to Otto's robotic arms and actually works for him. Of the tentacles influence, Peter then transfers the nanobots from Otto's arms back onto a suit, creating a new integrated suit. Otto joins Peter and Norman in their attempts to cure the other's next screening device to remove the electricity from Electrode's body, although to take a while to complete the process for working on an antidote for the Goblin serum. But suddenly Peter's Spidey sense puts him on high alert, although he doesn't know exactly what's wrong. He takes a look around the room before shooting a weapon. No Man's hand was revealed to have been taken over by the Green Goblin. Once again, Goblin says they don't need to be fixed, believing their abilities not to be currencies but gifts. Electro, influenced by Goblin's words, removes the device from his chest and seals the arc reacted before blasting Dr. Octavius out the side of the building. While Salmon and the Lizard escape, Peter and the Goblin brawl all the way down the building, with Goblin slamming him from one floor to the next before landing in the lobby. Goblin nearly strangles Peter to death, but it's stopped by May when Jackson with the antidote. Unfortunately, it doesn't work and allows Goblin to send his daughter into her for tossing 3 pumpkin bombs and escaping. Luckily, the explosion doesn't injure Peter too severely and May believes she's okay as well. Peter blames himself for all of this, believing "you should have sent them back," my exchange said, but May tells him not to give up helping others despite all odds. Have a gift. You have power. With great power, they must also come great responsibility. May then suddenly collapses to the floor and Peter realizes Goblin's glider has led to bleeding to death. He calls for help but it doesn't come and May dies in his arms. Happy that arrives only to see Peter's kneeled over May's lifeless body as officers surround them with arrest. Happy and open fire on Peter, forcing him to flee. Meanwhile, in his house, he and MJ have gotten word after learning of what happened on the news. Ned, wearing the sling ring, wishes to see Peter and accidentally begins opening a dimensional gateway for a moment, so he tries to do it again and succeeds, being able to see Peter through it, but as he approaches them, they realize that it isn't their Peter and is actually a Spider-Man from another universe, first seen in the 2012 and 2014 Amazing Spider-Man films, fighting against the likes of Electro and the Legend, who got transported to their university at the bot smell after having improved. He's actually Peter Parker by crawling around on the ceiling. They try to open the portal again to find their Peter, but once again appear from another universe steps through it, this time from the 2002 to 2007 Spider-Man trilogy. We fought against Green Goblin, Doc Ock and the Sandman, and after having a quick exchange with the other Peter, he's planes has been trying to find their Peter ever since he got transported here, believing he needs their help. They eventually find Peter on the roof of their high school, and after an embrace from his friends, he meets the 2 other Spider-Man for the first time, expresses his skill over Man's death and says he's done trying to help the others. The 2 Peters claim to understand what he's going through, but the one claiming to be the cause of his girlfriend Gwen Stacy's death, which led to him becoming rageful and bitter, no longer pulling his punches. He doesn't want their Peter to end up like him. The other Peter says his actions led to the death of his Uncle Pat, and although he later found the man that he thought did it and witnessed him die, it didn't make it any better. He just says he wants to kill Norman, but after learning their Uncle Ben's give the same lecture on responsibility to them as they did to him, Peter agrees to try and cure the villains one more time, so the 3 Peters go to the school's lab and recreate the antidotes, with the Peter from the Lizard's universe creating an anti-serum for Dr. Connors, the Peter from Green Goblin's universe creating an antecedent for Normal in our current universe, as Peter rebuilding the devices for Salmon and Electron. Then they head to the top of the Statue of Liberty, where Peter calls into the Daily Bugle to broadcast a message using the Mokina to learn the villains while they wait for them to arrive. The 3 Peters take the time to get to know each other, with one Peter helping crack the other's back and the 3 discussing the web shooter situations as well as the greatest supervillains. Electro was the first to arrive, followed by the Lizard and the Salmon, but the 3 Spider-Men struggled to enact a plan, not working well together as a team. They're forced to regroup, and our universes Peter tries to give them advice based on his time as part of the Avengers, but neither of the other 2 Peters know what that is. Still, they form a new plan to target one villain at a time while also labeling themselves Peter 1, Peter 2, Peter 3 to make communication easier. They swing together into battle, laying on top of the statue and facing off with 3 supervillains that first work together to cure the Sandman and return Flipmark go back to his human form before attempting to cure electronics. But Peter 1 gets caught up trying to learn the Lizard away from MJ. Net Peters 2 and 3 get overpowered by electrons. Just then Doc Ock returns, and although at first he appears to be under the tentacle's influence once again, he proves that not to be the case when grabbing onto Electrode's arc reactor and ripping it off before placing it with a device that read some of his electrical power. Peter 1, meanwhile, with the help of his best friends Here's the Lizard and Robertson back to Dr. Connor's net attempts to open the portal to hide the Mokina, but he instead reopens the portal to the mirror dimension, allowing Doctor Strange to return. Pleasantly surprised by Nan's mystical power, it takes back the box, but it's convinced not to reverse the spell just yet. I've seen Peter's find a cure them is actually working. Strange confronts Peter, and although he's impressed that he managed to give them all a second chance, he says it has to end now. Just then the Green Goblin arrives, taking the box for a moment before Stranger gains possession of it with the help of Doc Ock. Explosion causes MJ to fall off the scaffolding, so Peter follows after her only to be taken out by Goblin's glider, but she's thankfully caught and saved by Peter 3, who appears to have a sense of redemption after preventing her from suffering the same fate as one. Strange fails in his attempts to contain the spell again, and where so begins to form in the sky to other universes. Peter 1 and the Green Goblin then laying on the fallen Captain America shield that have been added to the Statue of Liberty, and a violent brawl ensues. Geeter, seemingly no longer pulling his punches, gets the upper hand on Goblins, repeatedly punching him in the face before picking up his glider and going for a fatal stab, only to be stopped by Peter. He didn't want to side against killing Goblin and Joshua Glider, but as he does all the stabs, Peter for the back. Goblin then attempts to goad Peter into killing him so we can realize its true power, but instead Peter and Jackson would the antidote and read some of his split personality he didn't want, and 3 go to check on Peter. He says he'll be fine before noticing the reps in the sky, that people coming through that he didn't want to find Strange, and realizes that the spell could be reversed if Strange casts another spell to make everyone forget who Peter Parker is. Strangest hesitant, saying everyone that knows and loves him will have no memory of him and that it'll be like he never existed, but Peter shares them he'll be okay, and so Strange begins casting the spell. Peter then finds and thinks as 2 variants with a 3 sharing group embrace before he goes to say his goodbyes, and that and MJ promising to come find them and make them remember. MJ tells him she loves him, but when Peter goes to say the same, she tells him to wait until the Caesar again, that to share farewell kiss. A Strange completes the ritual, sending each of the variants back to their realities. Not too long after, Cuter shows up at MJ his place of work, where he sees her and Ned talking about their acceptance. It's MIT. He goes to a miner who he is, but after seeing a band-aid covering the scar she got during their earlier battle, he decides not to, believing she'll be safer without him in her life. He then visits May's grave, but Happy arriving not too long after, although Happy has no memory of him and only remembers meeting May through Spider-Man. Now on his own, Peter gets his own apartment, answering with a box containing a GED study guide, a Lego given him by Ned, and the coffee cup given to him by MJ. He's been alerted of criminal activity on his phone, and the movie ends with him swinging throughout New York City, donning a new red and blue suit, and a mate credits scene. In the end, if you like this video, please press like and subscribe to help the channel, and turn on the notification. Thanks for watching.